Good evening and welcome to Inspire to Achieve Global TV. And I'm Roxanne St. Clair, your host tonight in the Executive Suite. And this is our Monday evening chat. And how has your week started? Has it got off to a great bang? Even though if you're in the UK, it's probably been wet, cold, and a little bit breezy. I sound like a weather forecaster now, don't I? But we're here together, and let's have an interesting conversation. Hi, Sheldon. Thanks for joining. And today is International Men's Day. So it's all about the men today and celebrating. But if you're a lady, do feel free to participate as well, because we're in a global society and we need each other in order to be our best selves and to thrive and to learn from each other. So let's have an engaging conversation today around issues that affect men. And as you know, the Executive Suite is a place that we come together to connect, to release some of the pressure, share our ideas, recuperate, and go out and just do what we're supposed to do to pursue our vision and our purpose. So it's not about me just talking, it's about us having a conversation and really sort of learning from each other, growing together so that we can go out and get our message out there into the world. And as I said, it's International Men's Day. So I really do want to focus on what it means and how, if you're a man and you're watching, what does it mean for you? Do you even recognize it and acknowledge it? And for the women that are watching as well, do you recognize it and acknowledge it? Because I know on the 8th of March, there is a big fanfare around International Women's Day where it's about equality. And, everybody knows about International Women's Day. But International Men's Day isn't actually publicized in the same way. And some people may say, right, hi, Marcia, thank you for joining. I'm hoping you're going to join in the conversation today about International Men's Day, because I think we've got some juicy things to cover today. So yes, International Men's Day is not really publicized in the same way. However, I think now with the change in society and change in roles in society, there are issues that are impacting men far more than some of the issues that impact women, but are they being addressed? And as you know, this is a space for executives, for leaders, for business owners. And we know that, men fit into that category. And even for myself, in the 17 years, or it's probably more than 17 years now, but for argument's sake, let's say 17 years that I've been self-employed and working with business owners, many of my clients have been men. And so I do have those levels of conversations with them to understand what's going on for them, understand some of the things that they're dealing with, both in their business life, but in their personal lives as well. So we will touch on some of this evening, because I do think it's very important for us to be having this conversation. Hi, Rajan, thanks for joining and welcome back to the UK. I'm looking forward to catching up with you to hear all about your travels. And this is one, Rajan, that I think you can connect with as well in terms of discussing topics around International Men's Day and some of the things that it means. Now, in addition to me working with a lot of men, also I'm the only female in my house. So I've got my husband and my 2 sons. So I'm surrounded by men practically everywhere I go. So again, it's me actually having that understanding, me learning to appreciate what's going on for a lot of the men that I'm in contact with, because in order for me to be able to communicate with them and connect with them at a level, that understanding needs to be there. And it just so happened that when I mentioned to my son, who's 18, that I was going to be talking about International Men's Day, he actually said, well, what does it mean to be a man? Which happened to be a question that I'd written down on my pad. So it was quite funny. So I then turned around to him and I phrased that question back at him. And he said to me that it's whatever you make it to be, which I thought was quite interesting, because growing up in the decades, I was a late 60s baby, and growing up, I was exposed to a lot of the sort of classical movies. So you had the stereotypical roles that men did and the stereotypical roles that women did. But society's evolved and changed over the decades. So what does it really mean to be a man? And some of you guys that are watching, do like, share, and comment, because this isn't a show where I just come and talk at you. This is a show where we engage and we talk with each other and we share ideas. So I would really like you to participate. So if I'm asking the question and you've got the answer, or you've got your own view and opinion, do share, because we'll have a conversation around it, because I love having conversations with you while you're watching. It's not just about me talking. So, for you that's watching, I think each of you that's watching, what do you feel it means to be a man? Because let's really get this conversation going and see how we explore it. Because there is so much around gender at the moment, in terms of what you're allowed to say, what you're not allowed to say, whether you can label people to be a he, a she, or whatever. So it'd be really interesting to see what people have to say. And I'm going to look at some of the comments so far. So, okay, Marcia's saying good evening. Raja's saying good evening. And and Raja, you're saying that you're glad to hear that they have an International Men's Day. So that's good. And it'd be interesting to know why you're glad to hear that they have an International Men's Day as well, because you know me, I love to ask questions. So, as I mentioned, I was speaking to my son, and his viewpoint was, being a man is whatever you think it to be. And he then went on to actually mention things like strength, because again, growing up, boys are often told that they've got to be strong, they've got to suck it up. So we were exploring things around strength. What do we mean by strength? There's mental strength, or the emotional strength. There's physical strength. There's financial strength. There's many different connotations of the word strength. So where does that fit in for the men around us, the men in our lives, and you as a man? What does it mean to you to be a strong man? And I think also the other side to it is, being a strong man is actually being able to admit that you need support, admit that you need help, because none of us can do everything. So it takes a lot of strength and courage to actually acknowledge and realize where you need help and where you need support. And I know that's one of the premises around International Men's Day. It's encouraging men to own that space where they can say that they need support. And mental health is something that comes up quite a lot in the International Men's Day arena, because again, there's a huge statistic, in particularly in the UK, for men between, say, 17 and 45. And I've read somewhere that I think there's 84 men in the UK per month actually take their own life. So it's showing that there's a bit of an epidemic there. It's showing that there's a need for that support and that help. And this show, I deal with people in business. So what does that mean for you if you're in business, and how are you taking care of yourself with your stresses and the pressures that may be facing you as a man in business? Now, I've mentioned again that I deal with a lot of men in business, and I see firsthand the stress that they're under, how they're having to cope with things and deal with many different scenarios. So say, for example, and I'm going to use a hypothesis because I don't want to sort of highlight any of my specific clients, but say, for example, you're running a multi-million-pound business, you've got a number of employees and departments, and they all come, they rely on you to provide that work for them. And as much as they may grumble about the company, they may grumble about coming into work, there may be things that they feel that they want, or they may not even do the job as you want them to, but they're employees. So you're responsible for their well-being, you're responsible for their families. So even regardless of what's going on for you, you still have to ensure that your employees are taken care of. You still have the issue of customers and taking care of your customers and the customer service side of things. You still have the issues of ensuring that your suppliers are paid. So there's a number of different pressures that may come on you. And if the buck stops with you as that business owner, who do you turn to? What do you do? How do you get support to ensure that your health is where it needs to be? So these are some of the things that we don't always, especially if you're not the business owner, it's not always something that you would take into consideration because you're seeing things from your own perspective, from your own standpoint. And it may even be if you are in business and you're dealing with other companies, for example, as a supplier, are you seeing the pressures that they're under as well? So there's that engagement side of things. And if there are a lot of people in an environment where it's quite a stressful environment, and we know some industries are quite stressful industries, whether it's fast paced or just the way that transactions take place, there's a lot of tension that can be built up and built up. And over a period of time, what happens if that tension is not addressed? So these are some of the things that are looked at around International Men's Day. These are some of the things that are highlighted. So, okay, so Adam, you're saying that you can talk all about mental health. That's really good. And okay, you say talk about mental health, but are you coming from a solution standpoint or are you coming from an awareness standpoint? Because we can talk about things, and consistently talk about things. And I think sometimes when we stay in that space of talking about the issue without really addressing workable solutions, are we actually moving any further along, or are we prolonging the pain and the angst and the agony? So, I'd be interested to know when you say talk about mental health, what perspective that you're coming from? So let's see. Okay. So that was one of the, so we're looking at, mental health is something that comes up. But this year there's actually a theme for International Men's Day. And what the theme is for this year is about positive role models. Because again, especially, if we look at the media, which I try and avoid as much as possible sometimes, you very rarely see people being praised as a positive role model. We tend to hear a lot of the negativity. We tend to hear more about when people have done something wrong than when they've done something good. And the only time that we seem to hear positive things about people is in an obituary. Once a person's dead and gone, suddenly people can highlight some of the good things that they did. But where are those living positive role models that we can look at to show that, well, this is somebody that's doing something constructive. This is somebody that is making a difference. So I suppose one person that most of us probably know, especially in this day and age, we're all around computers, is Bill Gates, in terms of the foundation and some of the work that they do around the world in order to cure things like malaria. And, there are other conversations that are going on around some of the things that they do in their foundation. But that's one example of a positive thing that we would hear about, say, a male role model. So again, who's your positive male role model? Do you have one? Have you had one? You as a man, woman, who do you look up to as a male figure to think, well, they're doing something that you would like to emulate? They've left a mark that's worth leaving. And even you yourself, are you a role model? So what mark are you leaving? What legacy are you creating to show that, one, you were here, but two, that you've made a significant difference that others can follow? So, these are just some of the things that have come up around International Men's Day. And, I was looking at it to say, well, we're here to really sort of make a difference. And there's been a lot of cry that there's a move away from highlighting the needs of men and how men need support as well. But who are the voices that are standing up to say, okay, this is what we're doing, this is what we're about? And, if you had to list, say, 10 men that are role models, 10 men that are actually creating a shift to make improvements for men, women, boys, girls, who are the people, because it'll be good for us to actually know ourselves so that we can start tracking, we can start looking, we can say, okay, there's a living embodiment of somebody that we recognize and acknowledge. And I can see that my screen's gone, so I don't know if Oh, don't know what's happening here. So I don't know if the image has gone yet. So I will be checking, but it's saying that I'm live. I just seem to have no camera, which is very interesting. So I'm just going to keep sharing with you regarding investment and hope that you can actually see me and not just hear me. So let me have a look. I'm just checking now as I'm speaking to you. So bear me looking down at the moment. Oh no, okay, it still seems to be live. Okay, right, that's interesting. Hi Sabrina, thanks for joining. We're talking tonight about International Men's Day and what it means to actually recognise and acknowledge International Men's Day. The theme this year is positive role models. So I would actually ask you, Sabrina, as a mother of 3 young men, who do they look at as their positive role models? And actually saying that, that's an event at the weekend. Again, it was in honor of International Men's Day and acknowledging boys and young men to show that, they do make a difference and they have a role to play. So I mentioned again that I'm a mother of 2 sons. And they've grown up with both mother and father around, even though dad has worked away at specific times in their lives. But they still have that key role model that they look at. But then there will be other people that have been part of their lives that they know are doing specific things. So they know that they have access to people, access to situations. Right, so somebody is saying test. Right, who's this that's saying test? What is it you're saying test on? Right, so I'm just looking to see. Right, somebody just, right. Is that you, Marcia, that's saying test, or is that somebody else? Because I'm not sure what you're saying test on. Right, so let's see. If I put, all right, I'm going to put a message on. So is that coming up? So is it just my camera that seems to have gone? Oh, right. So this platform is deciding. Okay. Right. So, okay. It seems to be okay. Right. So I can't see my thing here. Right. So who said I? Right. Let me see now. Okay. Bear with me because I'm just trying to see. I'm not sure who's. Right. Someone's saying I sent messages, but I'm not sure who that someone is that said I sent messages. No, not okay. Right. Okay. Well, actually, right. So let me carry on with that. So yeah. So another thing, that I mentioned before, and I think the key thing to do with International Men's. Oh, okay. To do with International Men's Day, and initially look at is really around health. And from the premise of how are you taking care of your health, not just in a work environment, so from the stress perspective, but from a general well-being and health perspective. So, looking at how you're eating, looking at levels of exercise, looking at sort of recreation and rest. Are you, or how are we encouraging our men to take care of their health? So again, if you're a man, what do you do? What regime do you have in place to take care of your health? And for people like myself, with the men in your life, how do you support them with taking care of their health? So I know I'm probably come across as a school mom when it's health related. So I would be sort of looking and making my little comments. Right. So who's saying this? Right. So okay. So you're saying that what it is to be a man is different when you're single, a family man, or a grandfather. Okay. So yeah, I can appreciate that. So, would you like to expand on that and share what you mean? So, what would you say? Okay, as a single man, what does it mean to be a man? I know I can imagine as a family man, there's the things of, again, when we spoke earlier on about positive role model. So if you're a family man, you want to be seen, I suppose, as the hero. You want to be seen as, again, where I mentioned earlier on, where my youngest son mentioned about strength. So again, you'd want to be seen as a strong person, the person that people can rely on. Right, so what you're saying now, so society didn't allow men to ask for help. Exactly, yeah. And that was, and I suppose it's changing now, but it was a case a while back in that, it was like keeping the, if British, keeping the stiff upper lip. As a boy, don't cry. It's not manly to cry and things like that. Whereas over I'd say the last 15 years or so, it's been encouraged to say, well, okay, men need to show their emotions more. Men need to express themselves more, so that, again, it was more to do with communication and interaction and engagement. But we're also seeing it's from that space of releasing some of the pressures and the tensions. Because, again, it's like being in a pressure cooker. If you're in a pressure cooker and the pressure's on, and you keep the pressure on, and you keep it 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 on, and there's no way for that steam to come out, what happens? Eventually that pressure cooker will explode. And it's the same thing with people not expressing themselves and just holding on to those tensions. Either you explode in one way, or your body will implode. So it's one of two things. So again, that's one of the reasons why I suppose the current thought is that you express yourself. If you need support and you need help, then voice that, or have somebody that you speak to. But I suppose the difference is, going back many years where we had more of the extended family, what you did have is that the men did get together, the men did congregate, or you had a young boy would have a grandfather or an uncle or someone that they had a lot of interaction with. So even if it was to go and do something like, you go fishing together, or you just go and sit down and you have men's time and the conversations, but life has got so busy now that people don't even have enough time sometimes to just go and have that space where you can just sit down and just be. You could talk about all kinds of things. You could put the world to rights, and that was a way of releasing some of what was inside. Sport does do that for some people, and I know, for example, if you do like heavy contact sport, it's seen to be a way of getting out some of what's building up inside. So whether you do rugby, football, yes, as well, I suppose, because again, you're getting the endorphins going. If you do like boxing, kickboxing, those kind of things, that you can release some of what's going on, again, with the martial arts. So it's finding what works for you to enable you to say, okay, release some of what's building up from the day to day, because life has become quite challenging. So I'm going to read some more comments here. Right, so okay, there's a comment here. So saying that, okay, you think that my youngest is correct for 2018, that in whatever it means to you, and having confidence to own that space. So yeah, and again, the other side of it is, so people like me who are millennials, getting used to accepting the fact that people will put their own label on what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman. And if it's right for them and they're comfortable with that, then it's acknowledging them and meeting them where they are, rather than constantly looking to impose your own viewpoints on that. So I'm a work in progress when it comes to that. And what do you say? Okay, so you're saying that you've spent decades trying to define what it is to be a man, and you're still struggling to define what it means to you. And again, because it's something that's evolved. If you were a man, 40 years ago, there was quite, I think, a clear, distinctive line as to what it meant to be a man. Whereas in today's society, what it means to be a man is very different, because we haven't got the stereotypical, what used to be the stereotypical, like, the man is the key breadwinner. Times have changed now, whereby whoever can do the role, and whether or not it's in a job, whether it's in a business, however you've structured your lifestyle, will be the key breadwinner. And it may alternate over different time periods. And then, so if one person's the key breadwinner, what is the other person's role, say, within a household? And again, where we mentioned the difference between if you're single, if you're a family person, or you're an elder, what role are you playing? And I know from a personal standpoint, when I was ready to settle down, I wanted somebody that could do everything that I could do, because I didn't see myself as being the only one that was going to be responsible for the household, because I had a career in mind. I had ambition. So I wasn't going to be at home doing everything in the house and going out to work. We would be sharing and splitting the role. So whoever was there first, or at the time, would do what was necessary. And that's still something that's practiced now, in that, whoever's at home or whoever's out at work does what needs to be done. And okay, it's not always smooth sailing, but we've got that flexibility in that neither of us is incompetent in any of the roles that are required to keep our lifestyle and our family operating and functioning, because we can both do everything. So it's a blessing and a curse, but it works. Oh, this is getting a bit political now. I might have to switch off early. Saying that women can't define what it is to be a man. Men have to define it for themselves. And it's funny you say that, because I was having a conversation with my business partner at the weekend, and we were talking about young boys and young men. And as much as, we have a lot of lone parenting going on, I still have this strong belief that women cannot show a boy how to be a man. We can nurture them, we can raise them, but when it comes to being a man, I still strongly feel that there needs to be a male role model around to show a boy what it is to be a man. And that's my own personal belief, my own personal opinion. But it's something that I feel is important for boys. And I do feel that, you need to have a combination of both in order to actually get a balance. And, like I said, I'm a mother of two boys, and there was no way, shape or form I ever thought that I could teach them how to be a man. I can teach them how to think. I can teach them how to value themselves. I can teach them how to relate to people and interact. But I can't say, this is who you are as a man. This is what you must do, and to be that man in their lives. So, I do, and I would sit down and have the same conversation with other women, in that we do need men to be role models. So again, this year's theme about positive role models. We do need our men to be up there and showing up, so that the younger men have someone to look up to, and therefore they have some kind of benchmark, even if they don't agree with everything you do, but they have a benchmark that they can sort of navigate around. And it may be that they go totally the other way for a while, but at least having that role model there, it's something that as they get older, they will not forget that they've had that. And I'm just keeping an eye on the time, because I don't want to go over time. Okay. So that is, so I agree to an extent in terms of women can't define for men what it is to be a man, but then it's, how do you define that? So that's something that I think would be quite interesting, just to see how we evolve and how we progress. Because again, as I said, with a lot of the political aspects now, where with the gender issue, which I'm not going to go into tonight because I think that's a whole nother discussion. But there's so many different conflicts, and I think sometimes views in terms of how do you define a gender, more or less, to say, okay, how do you define a man? How do you define a woman? So, if we're just saying on the historical viewpoint, how do you define a man? How do you determine for yourself what it is to be a man? How do you look at your place now to say that, okay, you're being the best man that you can be, but you're fully rounded in looking at how you are with your mental health, how you are with your physical health, how you are with your financial health, how you're coping in terms of relationships, and where's your support network. And I think that's something that I would say to carry on even after International Men's Day, building up that support network for yourself, building yourself up, that that you can thrive, because times aren't going to get any easier. But if you're building yourself up and sustaining yourself, your life can get easier. So that's something that I'd like to share with you. And just check and see if there was anything really specific that I wanted to mention. Okay, I think I've covered the key points I wanted to cover today for International Men's Day. And, with me, the conversation goes where it goes. And I just think it's nice for us to actually share and evolve and have the conversation. But, just what I'd leave you to think on is, what does it mean for you? How do you define being a man? And how do what do you think about International Men's Day? Is there more that needs to be done to actually publicize the day, to get clearer on what the benefits are from having and acknowledging International Men's Day? Because I think it's here, and it's been around since 1999. But do people really acknowledge the significance of International Men's Day? And does it need to be publicized more? Do there need to be more events around it? So what does it mean to you? What would you like to see? Do you need to set something up and start something for International Men's Day so that you can create an impact and make a difference? So I'm going to, oops. Okay, so you're saying that it should be promoted more. And yeah, so maybe that's something for you to take on board and promote more. Because, if you're here to make a difference and create an impact, what can you do around International Men's Day? Especially this time of the year where it's getting darker earlier. And as we've discussed, that mental health is a key issue for men, between 17 and 45. Is there something that you can put in place that's going to help to highlight what's needed for men? So I'm going to leave you with that one on that note. So thank you for taking part. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for liking and sharing. And if you want to know more about what I'm doing personally and a bit more of my background, then do visit the website, which is going along the bottom of the screen at the moment. And I just really want to thank you for taking the time out to be part of the discussion this evening and for joining me in the executive suite. And I just want to say have an awesome week. Whatever you decide to do this week, I hope that you more than exceed your goals and you end the week on a high note. And I'll be back here with you on Friday evening at 8 o'clock for our Friday evening chat. So stay awesome and have a lovely week. Bye for now.